To maximize the level of detail in your work, I would suggest you to concentrate on a small section at a time. In this way, you can focus your efforts on a specific area and recreate it with greater precision. As you can see from the reference image that this specific portion is in focus and has sharp details. So make sure you keep the tip of your pencil sharp so you don't add thick and blurry lines, as it will take the essence of sharpness away from the drawing. Now moving on to the eye and eye bag portion, and first of all I am darkening the outline and wrinkles first using my 8B pencil. I used the same 8B pencil to lightly shade this area with the base layer. You can also use your 2B pencil for this purpose, as it will work and look even better. And then blending it with a medium-sized dry brush afterwards to get a smooth base for the future layers of shades and texture. I've used the same 8B pencil to extend these lines further and to add shadows in the darker areas of the eye bag. If you are using a smooth paper, then after blending this layer, it will fade away a little bit. So I would suggest you to add another layer using a 5B pencil to further darken these details. Now grab a perfection eraser with a sharp tip and define the upper eyelid by adding a curved line of highlight along this outline of the eyelid. And for the highlights and details in the iris, I'm going to use my Mono 0 eraser to add lighter highlights as a draft first. And then I brightened them afterwards using the same Mono 0 eraser but with a chisel tip. You can use your perfection eraser to add these soft and blended highlights in the sclera as well. Now moving on to the eye bag, and first of all I will add the mixture of these slightly curved and straight lines or texture using Mono 0 eraser. You can keep the reference image in mind, but you don't have to copy the exact same details and highlights, etc. You can add them as you like, but keep this left area more highlighted than the right one to match it with the overall look of the eye bag from the reference image. And then I'm going to use my electric razor with a sharp tip to further fine-tune this area. You need to add extra bright highlights to achieve realistic skin texture and to make it look more shiny. You can go back and forth with your tools to improve and perfect this skin texture as much as you want. There is always a room for improvement and there are no limitation in hyperrealism. Okay, now moving on to the right side, and I will repeat a similar process of darkening the outline of the folds and wrinkles first and then shading and blending it using a dry brush. I'm further darkening and adding depth in the folds using my 8B pencil to give them a 3D look. You can also use your 5B or 9B pencil for this purpose, whichever you are comfortable with. Back in the days, I struggled a lot with this kind of hyper-realistic skin texture, and there was not a single tutorial available at that time. And I did a lot of experiments and learned it myself by practicing it again and again. So I decided then and there to show each and every step with detail in my each and every tutorial to help people like you who want to learn and achieve hyper-realism. As the paper I'm using is quite smooth, and I've added this final layer using an 8B pencil. So if I blend it with brush, it will fade away and make the wrinkles look dull. So I'm using my 2H pencil over it to blend the previous layers, and it will help in keeping the shade darker and embed the graphite in the paper instead of removing it from the surface. For the highlights, I'm using a perfection eraser and then adding small dots and slightly curved lines in between the darker lines of the folds. Okay, so I'm using the same perfection eraser to lighten some of these darker shadows and to add softer highlights. Now to add some bright highlights in between and over the folds and wrinkles, I'm using my sharp tip Mono 0 eraser and adding these small slant lines and dots where required. Notice that the direction of these lines are changing depending on the area you are working on. So again, you don't have to copy the exact shape and details, but keep the overall look of these areas from the reference image in mind while adding these lines.